Presidency dismisses claims as Atiku Obi oppose tax laws. Bandits kill 1, kidnap 5 as police launch rescue operation in Zamfara. NDLEA insists on mandatory drug testing policy for schools. Away from Nigeria, Egypt's El-Sisi urges UN Security Council reforms for Africa's larger role. Good evening, this is News Hour on Trust TV. I am Chiamaka Nwafo. We apologize for the lateness. We'll start off with the presidency rejecting claims that it secretly altered provisions of the newly enacted tax reform laws, insisting that the legislation followed due process and that no changes were made outside established legal and legislative procedures. The clarification comes amid calls by former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Labour Party's 2023 presidential candidate Peter Obi, and several civil society organizations for the suspension of the implementation of the new tax laws. The tax reform laws, which faced strong opposition from some federal lawmakers, particularly from the northern part of the country, are scheduled to take effect on January 1, 2026. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu recently signed 4 tax reform bills into law, describing the move as the most far-reaching overhaul of Nigeria's tax system in decades. The laws include the Nigerian Tax Act, the Nigerian Tax Administration Act, the Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Act, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act, all to operate under a unified authority known as the Nigerian Revenue Service. According to the federal government, the reforms are aimed at simplifying tax compliance, expanding the tax base, eliminating multiple taxation, and modernizing revenue collection across the federal, state, and local government levels. However, controversy arose after a member of the House of Representatives, Abdulsamad Dasuki, PDP Sokoto, alleged discrepancies between the versions of the tax bills passed by the National Assembly and those later gazetted and released to the public. In response to the allegation, the House of Representatives on Thursday constituted an ad hoc committee to investigate the reported discrepancies. Reactions continue to trail allegations that Nigeria's newly passed tax laws were altered after approval by the National Assembly. First, House of Representatives member Abdulsamad Dasuki, he raised a point of order, accusing the presidency of tampering with the bill and breaching legislative privilege. Other lawmakers also joined the pushback. They include Mohammed Bello Fage and Yusuf Shitu Galambi, who rejected the gazetted version of the tax laws and demanded clarification. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar weighed in next. He described the alleged alterations as illegal and called for immediate suspension of the laws. Also reacting, former Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, he questioned the transparency of the process and warned that the public trust was being eroded. On the party front, the African Democratic Congress ADC demanded a halt to implementation and asked for a full public inquiry. Civil society groups were not left out. The Civil Society Legislative Advocacy Center, CISLAC, said the controversy threatens democratic norms and accountability. From the north, the Arewa Youth Assembly rejected the disputed laws, saying the process raised serious constitutional concerns. Activist group, the Take It Back movement, went further, calling the tax reforms anti-people and threatening protest. The debate continues as pressure mounts for transparency and an independent review. Now to security matters. Troops of the Nigerian Army under Operation Heading Kai have ambushed a Boko Haram ISWAT logistics convoy in Borno State, killing 21 terrorists during operations in Sojiri and Kayamla communities. A statement posted on the Nigerian Army's official X handle on Sunday said the operation followed credible intelligence that over 100 terrorists had converged in the area to move supplies and plan coordinated attacks on nearby communities. The Army said follow-up operations were ongoing to determine additional casualties and recover more items. Recovered materials included bicycles, food items, drugs and medical supplies, detergents, clothing materials, bicycle tires, torchlights, as well as assorted weapons and ammunition of various calibers. The statement noted that troops remain in high morale with strong and sustained fighting efficiency, adding that the success underscores the effectiveness of intelligence-driven joint operations in disrupting terrorist logistics and supply networks. In a related development, troops also uncovered an improvised explosive device planted along the Dombo-Komola Road and arrested 2 suspected Boko Haram logistics suppliers around Kano in Water local government area. Sudan security bandits have attacked Fananwawa village in Bukum local government area of Zamfara state, killing 1 person and kidnapping several others. The attack, which occurred in the early hours of Sunday, is the latest in a series of violent assaults on communities in Bukum, which have suffered repeated bandit attacks, including a recent bomb blast. A resident, Malam Sani, said the gunmen operated for several hours, killing 1 person, kidnapping 7 others, and seriously injuring another victim with a gunshot wound. However, the Zamfara State Police Command confirmed the incident but said 5 persons were abducted. The police public relations officer, DSP Yazid Abubakar, said security operatives had been deployed and are currently on a rescue mission. He assured residents that the gallantry and resilience of police personnel would lead to the successful rescue of the abducted victims. Abducted worshippers from the Ekwa Church in Ayetoro Kidi, Kaba, Bunu local government area of Kogi State have appealed for urgent intervention following the release of a video by their abductors. The victims were kidnapped on December 14 when armed bandits attacked the church during Sunday service and took an unconfirmed number of worshippers into the forest, demanding over 600 million naira ransom. In the viral video, the captors, believed to include women, children, elderly persons, and church ministers, say they were ordinary community members abducted while worshipping and lacked the means to meet the ransom demand. The footage has sparked fear and outrage across the state, with residents calling for immediate security action. A resident, Joel, described the video as a mockery of Nigeria's security system and urged decisive intervention. The Kogi state government has confirmed the abduction of 13 worshippers, saying 4 attackers were killed during a gun battle with local vigilantes. Police authorities are yet to issue an official statement. The incident follows a similar church attack in Ijiba last month, where worshippers were abducted and ransom demanded. As the 2025 Christmas and New Year festivities draw closer, the Katsina State Police Command has intensified efforts to protect lives and property and ensure a peaceful celebration across the state. The Commissioner of Police, Bello Shehu, disclosed this during a police campaign against cultism and other vices road walk held in Katsina State. Trust TV's Abdullah Yamadi tells us more.
According to the Commissioner of Police, the campaign is aimed at sensitizing members of the public on the negative effects of crime on society and strengthening community police collaboration for a safer Katsina State, especially during the end of year period. The roadwalk, which took place along Sarki Abdurrahman Way in GRA Katsina Metropolis, attracted officers of the command and other key stakeholders. Leading the procession, CP Bello Shehu affirmed the command's commitments to combating crime and ensuring the safety of residents across the state.
In line with the IGP's mission and vision to have a people-centered policing, which, as you can see, this sensitization work is geared towards ensuring we achieve that goal. This is to call on members of the public towards some of these crimes that are that are bedeviling the society, talking about kidnapping, cultism, rape, and other forms of societal vices.
He stressed that criminal activities hinder development and pledged the command's continued support for initiatives that promote peace and security. He urged residents to cooperate with the police by reporting suspicious activities and working together to prevent crime, particularly during the festive season. The police campaign against cultism and other vices for Kharkov initiative, he said, is designed to promote transparency, accountability, and a strong partnership between the police and the community. The command called on citizens to actively join the fight against crime, assuring that collective effort will help make Katsina State safer and more secure during the Yuletide. To further enhance security collaboration, the police also shared emergency contact numbers with the public. A cross-section of Katsina residents expressed confidence in the police and acknowledged their critical role in maintaining law and order while calling for a more proactive approach to tackling insecurity.
With the security beef up, I will want to call on our Christian brothers to go to their respective churches without fear or favor, because both the governor, the commandant, the commissioner of police have shown us that they have definitely improved tremendously in the aspect of security.
Governments are trying, but trying government are doing, as I said, it all depends on God. Because whatever the government are doing without God, it is all in vain. And when government are doing and God supports, and God is on protect his children, because God is able to protect his children, both now, even to the new year, and even after. Our heart, our life, and property is in the hands of God.
So if you look at it very well, you realize that when you are talking of what government has, have been able to do, you realize that a lot of things are in place, especially declaring a state of emergency on security situations in Nigeria as of today by the president. I think is a welcome idea. The budget alone, 5.something trillions to curb the situation, I think is a welcome idea.
They urged relevant authorities to restore public confidence in governance by taking stronger action against bandits terrorizing communities in Katsina State and across the country. Abdullahi Izumayamadi, Trust Television News, Katsina.
Now joining us virtually to discuss Nigeria security matters is Muhammad Ali, security expert. Thank you for joining us tonight on News Hour.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So we've read a few stories on the security situation with a couple of kidnappings and abductions that have taken place. And earlier in the week, we've seen how the military have come out to say some success stories about how they've ambushed certain places and released certain people. There seems to be some sort of, what's the word? Will I say, we win this ones and we lose this ones. What's your take on the current security situation in the country?
Well, the Sahel is burning and its embassy is now a raging fire across the northeast geopolitical zone, especially with the activities of Boko Haram and ISWAP. But having said this, I want to congratulate the Nigerian army for the big success they've had in ambushing the cartel of Boko Haram, and in the process killing over 21 band insurgents, with dozens of them fleeing with gun wounds, and at the same time also taking over a cache of arms and ammunition from the Boko Haram members. That, I think, is a big success. And I believe as they continue to work harder, gradually but steadily will come to the end of this madness. But at the same time, I think we have to, at the same time, congratulate ourselves, the police, particularly, are trying to live up to expectations. They need to put more efforts, particularly in Zamfara state. A fellow local government uh, have been in the news in the last 9 days. People have been kidnapped. A few have been, about 3 people have been killed in the process. The police are up to the task, but they need to add more efforts so that they will be able to overcome the activities of bandits operating within Yankuzo Forest in Safi local government and the areas of Teshanjirgi, all in Safi local government area. I think a lot has to be done. So they need to work in concert with members of Operation Pansanyama, the military, so that together we'll be able to nip in the bud these acts of insurgency and banditry that is ravaging the northeast, the northwest, and of course the north central regions of the country.
All right, Mr. Mohammed, we talked about the Northeast. For a while, there was some sort of relative peace, especially in Borno State. But in the last, say, few months, maybe up to a year, we've seen renewed insurgency take place or happen there. What could we say is the reason for this renewed insurgency in Borno State, particularly?
Well, you see, for too long, the violence that plagues these regions, the northeast, the north central, and northwest, have before now been dismissed globally as localized acts of insurgency or banditry, a simple crime wave, they say. But to me, it is not. It is an agenda of Islamist insurgency in the northeast to a terrifying, sophisticated economy of violence, systematically fueled by acts of kidnapping for ransom, grazing cattle rustling, illegal mining, and a devastating inter-ethnic warfare, particularly within the north central zone in Plateau, Benue, and some parts of Nasarawa states. So I think a lot has to be done. We have to go back to the drawing board and ensure that the needful is done so that together we'll be able to salvage the entire country from the ravages of insecurity as presently witnessed.
All right, so there's something that, just right after the genocide proclamation by the United States president and all that alleged genocide conversation here, it seemed like there was now a spate of insecurity, people being attacked in churches, people being kidnapped from schools. That happened back to back a lot. Do you think that that statement, in any way aided or helped that whole thing to come to bear?
Well, that statement coming as it did was most unfortunate because, for one, the people that even claimed or made the submission to the United States Congress claiming Christian genocide, I think they've not been fair to themselves because one-on-one, I think there are more Muslims being targeted either by elements of Boko Haram, ISWAP, or the bandits. In every 200 or 100 killed, if you count, 98 or 99% of the numbers are Muslims. But be that as it may, I think there was a little, we were a little bit slowed down because of the issue of, so more attention was paid to that issue in order to settle it. And this is why the bandits and the insurgents found a leeway to do what they did. But I think we are now back on course, and certainly our forces will be very willing and ready to face these bandits and Boko Haram elements and ensure that they finish them within the shortest possible time. But again, members of the general public need to give their support by way of credible intelligence. We need to give information to these operatives, because the security personnel, they are not magicians. So they need information, credible information they can work with in order to really produce results. So I'm using this opportunity to call on members of the general public to always avail our security agencies with credible intelligence, so that together we'll take the fight to the bandits and ensure that it is ended within the shortest possible time.
All right, thank you so much, Muhammad Ali, for speaking to us on security matters in the country.
Thank you very much for having me.
Moving away from that, the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has issued a public alert over the recall of Indomie vegetable-flavored noodles, citing the presence of undeclared allergens that could pose serious health risks to consumers. In a statement on Sunday, NAFDAC Director General Mojisola Adeyeye clarified that the affected product is not currently on sale in Nigeria. However, she said the agency has intensified nationwide surveillance to prevent the product from entering the country or circulating in local markets. Adeyeye added that NAFDAC's Ports Inspection Directorate has been placed on high alert to block the importation of any implicated or unapproved noodle products. She further explained that noodles are listed on the federal government's import prohibition list, making their importation into Nigeria illegal. Despite this, NAFDAC has sustained enhanced monitoring nationwide as a precaution. The Director General encouraged Nigerians to report any adverse reactions linked to the product via NAFDAC's e-reporting platforms or on its official website. Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, have arrested a wanted female drug kingpin, Shodunke Yetunde Simbiat, after recovering 23.5 kilograms of cocaine hidden in her children's room at her Lagos residence. NDLEA spokesman Femi Babafemi said the arrest comes nearly 20 months after the agency dismantled a cocaine trafficking syndicate operating across Lagos and Ogun states, which led to the arrest of two other kingpins in May 2024. He says sustained intelligence and surveillance operations led to the arrest of the 39-year-old suspect, identified as a key stash keeper in the trans-border drug network. Babafemi added that in separate operations nationwide, NDLEA operatives also intercepted drug suspects at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, the Seme border, and in Kogi, Oyo, and Osun states, recovering large quantities of cocaine, tramadol, skunk, and other illicit substances. The NDLEA chairman, Muhammad Buba Marwa, commended the officers and urged sustained vigilance during the festive season. Still staying with NDLEA, the chairman and chief executive officer of the agency, Muhammad Buba Marwa, has affirmed that the newly launched mandatory drug test policy for schools will help curb the use of illicit substances among young Nigerians, particularly those seeking admission into tertiary institutions. Marwa made the statement while receiving the Vice-Chancellor of Taraba State University, Jalingo, Professor Sunday Paul Boko, and his management team, who sought collaboration with the agency in combating drug abuse and illicit trafficking. He commended the Vice-Chancellor for establishing a full Directorate of Narcotics and Drug Abuse Prohibition at the university and pledged NDLEA support through capacity building, training, and other collaborative initiatives. Bako praised Marwa's leadership of NDLEA, describing it as professional, transparent, and collaborative, qualities that have earned the agency recognition both nationally and internationally. He highlighted the growing challenges of substance abuse among students, warning that it poses a serious threat to academic excellence, moral values, and national development. The federal government is set to save over 2 billion naira in 2026 following the adoption of the Electronic Content Management ECM system by ministries, departments, and agencies as part of a major push toward paperless operations. The ECM, a digitalization initiative introduced by the head of service of the Federation under the Federal Civil Service Strategy 2021 to 2025, automates workflows and reduces reliance on physical files. Analysis of the 2024 and 2025 budgets shows that MDA spent heavily on stationery. 10 key ministries, including Foreign Affairs, Defense and Information, collectively spent 969 million on stationery in 2024, rising to 1.52 billion naira in 2025. At the launch of the system, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Senator Abubakar Bagudu, described digital transformation as a national necessity to achieve the administration's renewed hope agenda. He emphasized that the ministry would no longer rely on paper correspondence and encourage staff to embrace the system as a tool to work smarter, collaborate better, and deliver results. The head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Esther Didi Wilson-Jack, who performed the launch, said the initiative marks a bold step toward more efficient governance, where decision-making is no longer delayed by the movement of physical files. She added that the ECM aligns with Pillar 5 of the Federal Civil Service Strategy, which focuses on digitalizing work processes and aims for full implementation across all MDAs by 31st December 2025. Nigeria, particularly Lagos State, is facing growing challenges in the book trade as bookstores struggle to survive amid changing policies and economic pressures. Once thriving bookshops are closing, shelves are empty, and operators say fear of government sanctions is affecting their business. Here's more in this report.
In the early 1970s, 1980s, and early 1990s, bookshops were at the heart of Nigeria's intellectual and cultural life. Local bookstores and university bookshops served as meeting points for students, academics, writers, and readers, driving the nation's literary growth. However, as Nigeria's economy declined in the late 1990s and early 2000s, the book industry was not spared. Publishing slowed, importation costs rose, and distribution networks weakened, forcing many established bookstores to struggle under rising overhead expenses. Over time, Nigeria's reading culture began to shift, with many large bookstores giving way to smaller kiosks. Today, especially in Lagos State, only a few bookstores remain operational. Bookshop owners say government policies requiring students to buy new textbooks every academic session rather than reuse old ones have worsened the situation. They also blame the spread of pirated textbooks, which now dominate many book outlets. A Lagos-based bookshop owner, who declined to speak on camera, said business has significantly declined as government officials frequently shut down stores over piracy allegations. She explained that many parents now prefer pirated textbooks because they are cheaper, while an original art textbook costs between 22 and 25,000 naira. A pirated copy sells for 15 to 18,000 naira. Parents also expressed concern, saying government policies are indirectly encouraging piracy and placing additional financial burdens on families.
It's government that should know what they're going to do about the high cost of the textbooks, because so that the pirated book will not be much outside. They should know what to do so that it's not all the parents that can afford to buy the high quantities of that book. It's not all the parents that can avoid it.
What government are doing is not helping the masses. Like someone like me that have 2 kids. If it's like that, I will not be able to take care of my baby. You understand? So what they are doing is not ideal at all. It's just favoring them that have money, so-called money. I don't know. I'm not here to insult the government or anything. What they are doing is not good. It's not favoring us. We that don't have money. The masses. That's all that I have to say. For me, like now, I have 5 children. So 5 children I have. So if my daughter or my son use any book, finish in school, finish maybe SS1 or something like that. So the junior one can be able to use it because the cost of things in Nigeria is too high. And second, for me to go and buy a book and purchase a book again for my second child and pay school fees, I want to earn, how much am I earning in a per annual salary?
I think the government should try and pity us in terms of textbook. They should not let education to just fade away like that. So for those textbooks, for example, for somebody that is in a secondary school, if your child uses GSS1 textbook and your child moves to GSS2, the person coming from the back should be able to use that textbook. So I think they should help us with that because the economy is so harsh. It's so harsh now. So they should just help us and reduce the price of textbook, or they should allow anybody coming from the previous class to be able to use the present textbook.
In Lagos State, bookstores that once dominated Nigeria's literary space have either shut down or scaled back operations. Stakeholders are now calling on government to review textbook policies and strengthen regulation to protect legitimate booksellers and revive Nigeria's reading culture.
You're still on 2 News Hour on Trust TV. When we return from the break, we'll take a look at night fire destroying Kano Furniture's market. Traders count heavy losses. You stay with us, the news continues. Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Now a recap of our top stories. We told you that our president dismisses claims that Atiku Obi opposed tax laws. We also told you that bandits kill 1, kidnap 5 as police launch rescue operation in Zamfara State. Now joining us virtually to talk about our earlier story on the claims of the president being rejected about the tax law is Emmanuel Osemeka. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on News Hour tonight. Good evening.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
All right, thank you for joining us again. Now, there's been...
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. All right, so the presidency has rejected the claims that it secretly altered provisions of the newly enacted tax reform laws, insisting that legislation followed due process and that no changes were made outside established legal and legislative procedures. However, we, here at Daily Trust newspaper, there's a report that was done where we actually saw these discrepancies. So, were we to believe the presidency or the evidence before us?
Well, I think it's very clear. The laws were enacted by the National Assembly, and the members of the National Assembly, I believe, are quite aware of, the provisions that they imputed or corrected or adjusted within the, supposed law. If the same National Assembly is saying that there has been alteration, between what was passed by them and what was eventually gazetted, then of course it is imperative that the federal government, the executive, suspend every action until they get to the bottom of this impasse, because it would be illegal for anyone to fraudulently amend the laws passed by the National Assembly with a fiat without the knowledge of the National Assembly member. It becomes fraudulent, becomes illegal completely. So it's not enough to say, that there was no alteration or what have you. It is the same lawmakers who made the law that are saying that what they are seeing, with the gazetted law is different from what they passed in the both chambers of the National Assembly.
All right, so now we've seen that some people are calling for a suspension. Actually, the House of Reps, though we've created a committee to investigate these discrepancies, are asking for a holding and a halt on the matter. This law is supposed to take effect, say it's 20th, in the next 11 days. What do you think is the best course of action to take currently so as not to bring down a breakdown of law and order? Because some people are threatening protest already.
Look, it's a very simple thing. If the executive are sure nothing was altered, then of course they should come clean with the gazetted document, the real gazetted document, and show the National Assembly members, the civil society, and of course the opposition parties to ensure that there is transparency. Government is supposed to be run transparently. There shouldn't be any form of opaqueness or any form of secrecy when you run government or when you bring out laws of this nature. More so when you juxtapose this with the supposed MOU, the Nigerian Federal Inland Revenue Service, and the French supposed consultant, signed, which many people are not privy of. People are not aware of the content, because the reality is that any government that is worth its onion should be eager to show serious level of transparency in his affairs. That's one of the major, steps that government can use to win the trust of the people, most especially in our climate where the trust deficit between the governed and the government is at an all-time low.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Emmanuel Asamerka, for your insights on the conversation this evening.
Thank you, the pleasure is all mine.
Moving away from that into sad story, a devastating fire outbreak in the early hours of the night has raised the Sebuwelele furniture markets in the Toludu area of Gwali local government area, Kano State, leaving traders counting heavy losses. Eyewitnesses say the fire broke out at about 2:30 a.m. and spread rapidly across the market, engulfing several shops before officials of the Kano State Fire Service arrived at the scene. One of the affected traders, Bashiru Ustez, said he was shocked to discover that his shop had been completely destroyed. He noted that the market was bustling with activity just a day earlier, only for everything to be reduced to ashes by morning. The vice chairman of the market, Adamu Mansere, popularly known as Madaki, confirmed that the inferno started around 2:30 a.m. and raged until dawn. He said traders were yet to fully assess their losses, but disclosed that some individual shops lost furniture worth millions of naira. Madaki appealed to the Kano State government and well-meaning individuals to support the affected traders, describing the losses as overwhelming. Reports indicate that at least 11 permanent shops and about 20 temporary structures were completely destroyed, along with furniture, equipment, and other valuables worth millions of naira. Firefighters battled the blaze for several hours before finally bringing it under control shortly after the early morning prayers. Stakeholders in Gombe State are calling for tougher punishments, including castration, for perpetrators of gender-based violence, as cases of sexual abuse continue to alarm the public. Hassan Lawan Kuli tells us more.
Concern is mounting over rising cases of rape and sexual abuse, particularly involving minors, despite existing laws designed to protect victims and punish offenders.
Giving us a problems regarding gender-based violence, sometimes it's our culture, sometimes it's our society, where those that are committed such crimes must be hidden under that culture because we don't want to expose them. We are thinking of if you expose them, it may affect a future of such people that has been violated, which is very wrong. By reporting such situations, it may allow government or an authority that's supposed to take action on those that make a gender-based violence to face the consequence of the law.
Some stakeholders argue that conventional punishments have failed to deter offenders and suggest extreme measures like castration be considered within legal framework to protect vulnerable members of society. Others emphasize the need for proper legal procedures, speedy prosecution, and strict enforcement of laws such as the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act.
Other sane countries and developed worlds, we have what we call the sex offenders book. You can go online now and try and retrieve information about people, persons, and even organizations that are known to perpetrate gender-based violence against women or children, men or boys. I've not come across any of that in Nigeria, which is quite sad, because I can be walking amongst perpetrators of sexual harassment, of physical abuse, of rape, and I won't even know it. My kids could be being taught right now by a rapist, and I won't even know it. And, these are things that we need to start looking deeper into in terms of the policies and the things we put in place. There are countries that have made castration as part of their law for rapists. I heard as of yesterday that Gombe is going to put that into effect. That is the right step. The moment you castrate somebody, you make a scapegoat out of 1, 2, 3 people, it's going to come down in the society. Maybe they might find new ways of doing it, but then again, we'll find new laws that will apply to them.
Stakeholders also call for greater public awareness, community vigilance, a robust support system for survivors, including medical, psychological, and legal assistance. They urge the Gombe State Government and relevant authorities to review existing legal frameworks and take decisive action against GBV perpetrators. They insist that protecting victims and preventing future abuse must remain a top priority, and that all measures should align with the rule of law and human rights principles. Hassan Lawan Koli, Trust TV News, Gombe.
Still in the northeast, in Adamawa State, the governor, Amadu Marufintiri, has reiterated his administration's strong commitment to education, calling it the most reliable means to secure the future of young people and sustain peace in the state. Governor Fintiri made the remarks while receiving the leadership of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund, during their annual retreat at the Government House in Yola. He appealed to TED Fund to sustain and increase its interventions in Adamawa's institutions, particularly those located in security-sensitive areas. Leading the delegation, TED Fund Executive Secretary Sonny Echono said the visit was part of the fund's annual retreat to review performance, set new targets, and plan for the coming year.
You consider this state as one of the best states in the northeast, Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe, which has been engulfed and consumed by the nefarious activities of Boko Haram. So I think we should all put our hands on deck to ensure that we continue to invest in education and encourage our students so that they don't go the way of the Boko Haram. One of it is asking for more interventions.
Your Excellency, we want to first register and commend your tremendous strides in the area of education. Adamawa has a full complement of all the institutions that are beneficiaries of TED Fund, both at the level of universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. And we have also received reports of how you have also been supporting the federal institutions that are resident in your state. When those who are coming to Adamawa for the first time also in the city, they also see the level of infrastructure that have been provided for the good people of Adamawa State and want to see.
We go to the business thing. Nigeria's average daily gas supply rose to 4.684 billion standard cubic feet per day in November of 2025, up from 3.94 BSCF per day in October, according to the latest data from the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA. The increase was driven by higher plant utilization across major processing hubs and steady export volumes from the Nigerian LNG plant in Borno. Major processing plants recorded improved utilization rates, domestic supply rose across strategic sectors, and the LPG market maintained a significant surplus despite persistently high consumer prices. The Nigerian LNG trains 126 maintained a stable processing output of 3.5 billion standard cubic feet per day, with utilization improving slightly to 73.7% from 71.68% in October. The Soku gas plant saw the strongest month-on-month jump, operating at 96.84% utilization in November after temporary maintenance in October. Domestic deliveries to key sectors also improved. Gas supply to the power sector edged up to 0.645 billion standard cubic feet per day from 0.641 BSCF per day, while the commercial segment rose to 0.581 BSCF per day from 0.522 BSCF per day. Gas-based industries received 0.420 BSCF, up from 0.409 BSCF per day, indicating a gradual recovery in industrial utilization despite infrastructure and pricing challenges. Away from Nigeria, at least 10 people have been killed following a drone attack on a busy market in Sudan's North Darfur state, according to first responders. The North Darfur Emergency Rooms Council said the strike hit Al-Hara market in the RSF-controlled town of Malha on Saturday, setting shops ablaze and causing extensive material damage. The group did not identify those responsible for the attack. There was no immediate reaction from either the Sudanese army or the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF). The incident comes amid escalating violence across Sudan, particularly in South Kordofan state, where fighting has intensified around Kodugli, a besieged city already grappling with famine. A military source said on Sunday that 8 organizations had evacuated all their workers from Kodugli due to worsening security conditions. The evacuation followed the United Nations' decision to relocate its logistics hub from the city. Last week, a drone strike in Kodugli killed 8 civilians who were attempting to flee the area. The RSF has also claimed control of the Borno area, a key defensive position on the road linking Kodugli to Dilling. Since April 2023, Sudan has been engulfed in a brutal conflict between the army and the RSF, which has killed tens of thousands of people, displaced nearly 12 million, and triggered the world's largest displacement and hunger crisis. The United Nations declared famine in Kodugli last month as communications in the area remained cut and access to humanitarian aid severely restricted. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi on Saturday reiterated calls for structural reforms in the United Nations Security Council to give Africa a stronger voice in global decision-making. Speaking at the Russia-Africa Partnership Conference in Cairo, attended by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, ministers from over 50 African nations and representatives of regional organizations, el-Sisi advocated for a more pluralistic world order. Since 2005, the African Union has been pushing for at least 2 permanent Security Council seats with veto powers and 5 non-permanent seats for Africa. Proponents argued that such reforms would strengthen peace and stability on the continent, which has faced decades of conflict. However, African nations have yet to agree on a mechanism for selecting permanent representatives. The current Security Council structure, unchanged since 1945, consists of 5 permanent members with veto powers. They are the United States, Russia, China, Britain, and France, and then 10 non-permanent members elected for 2-year terms without veto powers. In sports, the Confederation of African Football (CAF) has announced that the winner of the Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025 will receive a whopping $10 million in prize money. CAF President Patrice Motsepe revealed the figures on Saturday during a meeting of the CAF Executive Committee in Rabat, Morocco, just a day before the tournament kicks off. Scheduled to run from Sunday, December 21, 2025 to Sunday, January 18, 2026, the AFCON Morocco 2025 sees the prize money jump by 43% compared to the 2023 edition, when host Côte d'Ivoire took home $7 million. CAF also stated that the runners-up will receive $4 million, while each of the 2 semi-finalists will pocket $2.5 million. The continental body described the increase as part of efforts to enhance the competitiveness, value, and global appeal of Africa's flagship football tournament. And that's it for News Hour tonight on Trust TV. For more of our news, programs and documentaries, do to follow our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. On behalf of the news production team, thank you for joining us tonight. I am Chiamaka Mwafo. Good night.